quick update on the Young Thug and YSL uh, court trial. This shit has been a mess, but just to let y'all know, attorney Brian Steele, representing rapper Young Thug, was taken into custody for contempt of court. This occurred after Steele repeatedly refused to reveal his source for information about a private meeting between Judge Earl Glavin, the state, and witness Kenneth Copeland. The incident led to a temporary recess and a denied motion for a mistrial by Steele. So the judge decided to sentence Steele to spend every weekend in jail for the next 10 weekends, starting June 14th and ending August 18, 2024, at the Fulton County Jail. The sentence was a result of Steele's steadfast refusal to disclose the confidential information source despite multiple requests from the judge. Okay, so I'm gonna just play a video for a legal expert to break this down. So long story short, supposedly he found out that the judge, the state, and one of the witness had a private meeting, and Young Thug's lawyer mentioned it, and the judge was like, wait a minute, how do you know that? Like, you need to tell me where you got your source. And he was like, bro, I'm not telling you nothing. That's exactly what he said. But let's get a full breakdown of what happened.
Developments, interesting ones, as the attorney for rapper Young Thug in his RICO case was placed in contempt. Cameras rolling as Steele removed his jacket and he was taken into custody. Watch this moment here on Live Now from Fox as we're going to get into what it means in this case there in Atlanta, Georgia. Of course, before storming out of the courtroom, the judge told Steele he had 5 minutes to change his mind or be held in contempt. While the judge returned, Steele once again refused to reveal how he learned about what was discussed in the judge's private chambers.
Sir, you're straying off the issue.
I'm not.
The issue is how did you get this information?
Like I said, Judge, you listen and listen. I'll do whatever you want.
All right, this is as the judge presiding over this Young Thug lengthy racketeering trial held the musician's attorney in contempt after being confronted about a private conversation reportedly held between the judge, prosecutors, and one of the state's star witnesses. So a very, very interesting moment there as held in contempt and arrested in court, put in custody. So very interesting to say the least. For more on this, let's continue on here on Live Now from Fox and talk about what it means in this case. Bring in right now legal.
You know what's funny about this is that his lawyer is more gangster than everybody that, well, not everybody, but his lawyer was way more gangster compared to the people that were charged for the crime of the whole RICO charge. This dude was not snitching. His lawyer was not budging. He's like, bro, y'all ain't gonna get me to snitch, which is fire. You know what I mean? It's fire, right? Like, I'm not preaching the street shit, but his lawyer is gangster. He's like, bro, I'll do 20 days in jail with my client and, try to help him win this case. But for him to not really, snitch and like be like, yeah, this is where I got the information, to me, that's dope. That's really dope. But let's hear this breakdown of what's happening.
Affairs journalist Megan Cuniff. Megan, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And this feels like a major development, a major deal. Can you kind of sum up what exactly transpired in court today?
It does. This has been such a wild trial in so many twists and turns, but this one really takes the cake here because the latest drama had been a star prosecution witness on Friday pled the fifth. Even though he'd been offered immunity, he was refusing to testify. So he was actually jailed for contempt of court, and prosecutors raised...
That's crazy. So one of the witnesses was like, yeah, I'm not snitching. I'm going to plead the fifth. That's what I don't understand. Like, if you give a statement, like, why go back on that statement if you're in trial? Is it because you're in fear for your life, or did Young Thug offer you money so you won't snitch? You know what I mean? Like, what happened?
Pretty serious allegation, basically saying that they thought this witness's defense attorney was conspiring with not to represent his client, but to help Young Thug and his co-defendants by getting his client not to testify. That was met with a lot of pushback by the attorney himself and the defense in general. And then this morning, after a weekend in jail, the witness was supposed to be back on the stand this morning, and he'd said that he was going to plead the fifth again. There was an unexpected delay in court. Court doesn't usually start on time, but it also doesn't usually start 2.5 hours late. But there was an unexplained delay, and into the proceedings, Brian Steele reveals that he has heard that the reason for this delay was there was a in-chambers meeting between the prosecutors, the judge, and then Kenneth Copeland, who is the state's witness, regarding his testimony, and that this meeting is what spurred Kenneth Copeland to change his mind and say that, okay, he's going to cooperate and testify today. This was ex-parte communication between the judge and the prosecutor, and of course the judge is defending it, saying that technically this was on the record. The court reporter was there in chambers, so it's not proper to call it a secret meeting, but the defense was arguing this was totally improper for them not to be notified and included in this meeting. But the judge's big concern was who told Brian Steele about this meeting.
Yeah, but why wasn't the defense aware that they was talking to the witness? Shouldn't they all be in that same room figuring out what's happening and what's not gonna happen? Or maybe Copeland is scared. He's scared of his life, probably scared of his family's life, etc., etc. Let me see. Kenneth Copeland, is that the brother of Young Thug? Let me see. Kenneth Copeland, Young Thug's relationship. Let's check real quick. Okay, who is Little Woody? On the same day that Kenneth Copeland, also known as Lil Woody, finally tested Copeland, who had been arrested, was brought. Okay, I know that, but what is there? Isn't that his? So let's do Copeland. All right, so let's write Little Woody. Is that his brother? Little. All right, so Young Thug trial day 88. Kenneth Copeland testifies. Okay. So Copeland, who has been arrested a previous Friday for invoking his Fifth Amendment right, was brought into the courtroom shortly before noon on Monday. He's still to be appeared to be reluctant to testify, and his evasive answers range from uncertainty about his birthday to claiming memory issues regarding his children's ages and his arrest record. When asked to identify Shannon Stillwell in court, Copeland initially claimed vision problems, taking a long time to look around before misidentifying others as Stillwell. During questioning, Copeland told the prosecutor that he wasn't cool with Shannon as a kid, but he would go out with anyone, even you. Copeland also complained about being hot during the court and asked that the judge if he could remove his jail uniform. Okay, so who is Kenneth Copeland? Copeland, who is a convicted felon, was arrested in Fulton County October 21st with a loaded gun in the car while he was driving. After his arrest, Copeland reportedly gave police information about several past and future crimes. Damn. Copeland also indicated that he would help get a confession from Young Thug. Damn. Young Thug's attorney, Brian Steele, immediately filed for a mistrial after Copeland's arrest. However, the judge denied a motion. Okay. My only question is, what is Copeland to Young Thug? Like, is he just a friend? Is Young Thug friend? So I guess he's just one of the quote-unquote gang members of YSL. Let's continue this.
and he demanded that Steele tell him who told him about these chambers communication, and Steele wouldn't do it. One thing led to another. Now Steele's been held in contempt of court, and right now as we speak, they're talking about this. Steele is represented by Ashley Merchant, who's actually the lawyer who exposed the Fonnie Willis scandal and the Trump case. That's a whole other story. Yeah. But it's a question of, is he going to be granted bond or is he going to go to jail tonight?
Yeah, this is very, very wild as well. And as you hear these developments about this kind of meeting that was on the record, like you said, the court reporter in the room, does Brian Steele really have a point here that potentially he should have been included in this conversation?
That's a good question.
Absolutely, and a lot of attorneys are expressing shock that the prosecution would be meeting with the judge like that, but the judge is saying, hey, this is an issue for the appellate court. The court reporter was there's going to be a transcript of this. The appellate court can decide whether the judge was out of bounds or not, and he wants to know who is leaking communication from his chambers to the defense, and right now he hasn't found out, and that has led to the contempt order against Brian Steele.
Yeah, it is very, very interesting. And like the scenes that we're putting up on the screen is Brian Steele taking off his jacket. They're kind of taking off his tie as well. It's a very major display taking part there in this courtroom. And I have to ask, because this trial has been going on for so very long, does this extend it? Does this kind of continue on with the fact that this is going to be going on for quite some time?
I think it does. I think it highlights all the extraneous things that are going on behind the scenes, all the arguments with the lawyers, and just all the drama that sometimes doesn't even have anything to do with the testimony or relates to it somewhat. But yes, I think we haven't heard the last of this, and this is an example of why this trial is taking so long.
All right, let's get into the witness a little bit, because like you mentioned on Friday, they weren't going to testify after a weekend in jail. They somehow decided to change their mind, potentially return to the stand. How important is Kenneth Copeland in this trial?
He's very important. He's a key witness. He's not one of the people who's taken a cooperative plea agreement. There are a couple people who've testified who are associates of Young Thugs and involved in the gang activity, who actually were charged in the case and took plea deals that required their testimony. Kenneth Copeland had other cases somewhat related to the
Woody says he doesn't know how old his kids are because he spent so much time in jail.
Case, but he was not charged in the RICO indictment. But he has been named as the killer of Donovan Thomas, who was a rival gang leader who was murdered in Atlanta back in 2015. And Donovan Thomas's murder is a big part of the case. And Brian Steele, in his opening statement, actually came out and said that.
So technically, he didn't snitch then, because he didn't. She said that he didn't cooperate. He agreed to testify, but there was nothing written. So is he a snitch or not? This is where this shit gets like all over the place. Like, he's not testifying against Young Thug. He didn't write a plea deal or anything. He said he was going to testify probably to get a lesser time, but now he's not going to testify. So is he a snitch or not? What is it?
Woody, which is Kenneth Copeland's nickname, is the real killer here. And he's been mentioned untold times throughout testimony as an associate.
Also, Lil Woody wasn't even part of the whole RICO charge. He just committed other crimes.
Of Young Thugs as involved in various activities. So prosecutors were really depending on his testimony for sure. They wanted it for sure. And of course, the defense has reasons to cross-examine him about all these things, but it was absolutely more important for the prosecution to get him on the stand.
Yeah, very, very interesting and important witness, but we've had about 80 of them so far, so very, very interesting. I do want to get back into the Brian Steele kind of saga that was taking place today as well. After he was let out of court, the co-counsel said they didn't feel comfortable without Brian. Maybe how much did transpire after Brian Steele was let out of the room that they didn't want to continue the trial without Brian Steele there?
Right. And you could tell that prosecutors were hesitant about what was going on. They said they weren't arguing against the contempt. They supported the contempt, but they asked the judge if he could fashion some kind of punishment and remedy for this that allows Steele to still be in the courtroom representing Young Thug during this trial. And you could tell that they have concerns that if they do somehow get a conviction here, and this is an issue, that the convictions could get thrown out because Young Thug's right to counsel was violated through this. And the judge agreed at one point. He said, well, we can have Mr. Steele put his tie back on. But there's still the issue of he's not lifting the contempt order. Steele is still being held in contempt. They're just also allowing him to work the proceedings.
Yeah, does this maybe open him up to more of a mistrial? Because it feels like something like this can kind of taint what's going on in a trial. Does this maybe open it up? Because there were certainly many requests, several requests made for a mistrial.
Yo, I feel like Steele just plotted this. He's like, oh, let me bring this up so the judge can ask me, where did I get this information? And tell him, bro, I don't know where I got the information. And they can just have a mistrial. And then Young Thug will get out. And then they're probably going to have to redo a whole nother trial. But at this point, they should give Young Thug bail. At least give him that.
Does this just add to the list?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's mistrial requests pretty frequently here, and most of that I think is the attorneys knowing that they need to preserve their record for appeal. I'm sure they feel a mistrial is warranted, but I think they understand that 17 months into trial, which we technically are because trial includes jury selection, the judge is not going to be calling a mistrial unless the number of jurors gets below 12 and he just has to. And I mean, he's made it clear that he's not going to do that. So these requests are definitely falling on perhaps not deaf ears, but somebody who is not going to be granting a mistrial at all if it happens. But it definitely heightened the requests, and we had a chorus of mistrial requests this afternoon.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. And Steele did eventually return to the room, and I gotta ask, maybe what comes next? What happens tomorrow if this was the drama today?
You know, Kenneth Copeland is back on the stand, and I think we're going to be hearing perhaps some more argument related to the contempt. And then it's always interesting what comes out in his testimony, because while he's a prosecution witness, he's not the most cooperative prosecution witness. So there's some tense exchanges between him and the prosecutor, and we haven't even gotten to cross-examination yet.
Yeah, that is going to be something to see. And I do have to ask you, because we have you on quite a bit, and you cover some of the most major trials here from Los Angeles and beyond. Maybe can you put this into perspective? How interesting, how wild was today in terms of what happened inside of that courtroom?
I found it very unusual. This was definitely not something I'd seen before. And just having watched the trial for as long as I hadn't watched Brian Steele in court, I thought it was a pretty dramatic moment when the judge was saying, take him into custody, take him into custody. I just thought, wow, I didn't think the trial could go here, but here we are. So it is kind of a question of what are we going to have next here, and what else is coming?
Yeah, what else is coming? As you mentioned, some 17.
Yeah, but let me know what y'all think of this whole Young Thug trial. Honestly, it looks like if I was a betting man, I don't think he's gonna get charged with anything because people are not cooperating. The defense is doing a terrible job because the judge just keeps, he just keeps like telling them off at court because they're not being prepared or they're trying to be slick, and it's just a lot of politics, man. Just free Young Thug, let him go. He didn't kill no innocent people. I mean, I'm just biased. Obviously, I'm a fan, but, if you gangster, bro, let the gangsters kill each other, man. As long as y'all don't kill innocent people, y'all could kill each other all day, right? Unfortunately, that's just the truth of it all. Y'all gangster, bro, y'all go over there. I'm a civilian. Y'all go handle that. But let me know what y'all think of Young Thug's case.